Oh dear, the summer holiday mobile is sneaking up behind me. Although if I remember rightly, it's about a ringmaster. Or a bit of an RT. Anyway. All I can say, ladies and gentlemen, is wow, what a collection. We fit in this afternoon examples of general haulage vehicles, passenger carrying vehicles, emergency vehicles. Some of the less well-known manufacturers and indeed operating companies as well, of course. And a couple of vehicles which, much as I probably shouldn't have favourites, I have to say, count amongst my own personal favourites. I know it was Cliff Richard, of course, starred in Summer Holiday. I can't help feeling those Eunice Stubbs and Melvin Hayes in there as well. But from 1965, the Leyland Titan. He's hiding from me. I'm pretty sure it was a London Transport bus that Cliff Richard and his friends all nicked. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting confused here. The Stockport, as I was saying, it was a London Transport vehicle that Cliff Richard and his friends took, wasn't it? But this started life with Stockport Corporation. Many of the local authorities running their own bus companies at the time, and ran in service for only 12 years, in fact, which is a relatively short period of time, from 1965 to 78. And then been with the present owner, Ray Seal, crew since 2006. In the time since it was sold out of service, it has of course undergone a full restoration. Unlike this wonderfully patinated half-cab Leyland Tiger, which is one of those that I have to confess is one of my own personal favourite vehicles, because I do have a soft spot for the what you might call the bus company service vehicles. This one started life as a service bus with a 35-seater Birmingham service body on it, and was one of 3 subsequently converted by Ribble to recovery vehicles. So this was BD3, worked out of the Carlisle depot. Now I'm hoping the microphone will still carry on working, because one of the wonders of the internet, being a bit of a sad anorak, I was looking up some of these vehicles the other day, and is it an ex-Ribble vehicle that's in a really poor state in a scrapyard somewhere?
So, well, I don't know a lot about the history of it, because I'm only driving it on behalf of Robertson Haven. I know it was cut down as a single decker. It was the last of the front-engine half-cabs that Ribble built. I'm not quite sure whether this is the one that you found in the scrapyard. I'm not sure.
So it certainly looks very similar, so I suppose now we have to find Robert. But anyway, thank you very much indeed. Of course, so often the bus companies cut down old vehicles out of service into recovery vehicles. And a company that we don't necessarily think of as being commercial passenger carrying vehicle builders, Foden's. In fact, probably the most famous Foden passenger carrying vehicle was for their own works band, the steam wagon. But how many of the actual service buses did they build?
I think probably made around 600 in total. This particular one is a metal craft body, and it has a 2-stroke engine. And it's probably the only engine 2-stroke now left. Put the exhaust, give it valid.
Oh, yes, we'll do the 2-stroke bark, shall we? Hang on, where's the exhaust? Well, out the back on these, isn't it? Now, we have a technical problem here. Hang on, this should work. That, of course, is that wonderful two-stroke bark. Two-stroke diesels not actually as unusual as some people might think. In fact, I suppose Foden's being famous for two-stroke, and probably the other most famous two-stroke diesel. Oh, we'll forget things like the Detroit diesels, but I think it has to be the Comma, doesn't it, the TS3. But that was technology all off on its own. But anyway, a brace of country buses now. One literally is London Transport country bus, but the other, the sort of bus that you saw all over the place in country lanes, operated by country bus operators. Thank you very much indeed. The Bedford OB. Now, Bedford always tended to produce a passenger carrying variant as well as a goods carrying variant of all their models. So the OB was the bus version of the O-Type with a wider chassis, lower chassis. And this one has a 6-cylinder petrol engine of 28 horsepower. It is in fact the famous Bedford 28 horsepower engine. Just consider though that a modern Volvo coach diesel knocks out usually somewhere between 276 and 305 horsepower, so more than 10 times this power. It is one of 12,766 OBs produced between 1939 and 1951. It's always been relatively local in that it started life in Oswald Street and then went to Mid Wales Motorways, and finally it's in preservation with Meredith's. And their last operational OB was actually sold off in 1963, which in fact was the year I was born, so that was what, 48 years ago. I don't have to calculate that one. Now, although the badge on the front says London Transport, the mascot on the bonnet says feathers in our cap, which implies this has to be a guy.
That's right, it's a guy with an Eastern Coachworks 26-seat body, built in 1953.
Now, I can never remember, was it Lowestoft these Coachworks were?
That's correct, yeah, Lowestoft.
That's because in fact I know they